Are you a cat or a dog person?
That's honestly very topical because I've been a dog person forever, but now I'm like starting to see the truth behind cats and like
Mm.
why the narrative around cats has been so negative. But I think it's because people are, kind of holding on to a very powerful secret. I think cats are kind of like the perfect combination of dog, but it's a cat.
Well, it
No,
feels like
Joe. Oh,
no. I'm
call
totally
it.
with you, Joe.
Interview's over.
I'm totally with you because honestly, like dogs are simple and people trend towards simplicity, but those of us that really understand that everyone has feelings, life is a bit more complex, and see life in nuance, they appreciate the cat. There's a bit of
No, no,
mystery
no.
there.
I was reading an article, surprise, surprise, where they, um, and when someone dies in their house, how long an animal in their house will start to eat them. Like how
Oh,
long until
sure,
they start to eat them.
sure.
Cats will just dive right in and just start feasting on your meat. Dogs will wait and they'll like starve themselves before they start eating you. Cats do not care
So
whether
Mackenzie, I got a
you
question for you.
are
Mackenzie, I
there
got
or
a
not.
question. Do you like to
Shoot, Joe.
travel? Do you like to travel?
I wouldn't say I'm a big traveler.
All right, well then you sound like the perfect candidate for a golden retriever, and that you
Yeah.
will literally wipe that dog's ass, and it'll love you for it, and you'll never go anywhere. But it'll definitely be a better companion to you. Now, listen, I hear you. Cats are a little bit of narcs. We don't love the temperament that comes from a cat. Like this is my house, and you just live here. But I mean, there's a liberty, there's a freedom in a feline. That's and it still is fluffy. You still get to pet it if it lets you. And I don't know, like a fat cat doesn't do anything for you.
Well, you're a cuddler,
Well,
Mackenzie, so you
it
need that.
reminds me. I'm a cuddler. I'm a
Yeah,
snuggler.
right.
And when people when I wrestled in high school, and I always like to say it's intensive snuggling, because that's what it is. Um, Competitive snuggling, maybe. But it reminds me of the Mike, or no, not Mike Birbig. Oh gosh, what's his name? Nick Swartzen. Nick Swartzen has a stand-up routine where he talks about cats versus dogs, and he's like, if you have someone who's breaking into your house, a cat's gonna look and be like, "Oh my god, he's breaking into the house. Good," and they'll walk away. Whereas like a dog, they'll be like, "Oh my god, he has a machete," and they'll just start barking, and they'll just be like, "Joe, Joe, 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 Joe," and they'll let you know that there's a murderer in the house. So I don't trust cats at all because the point of an animal in the house is protection.
See, I feel like the point of an animal in the house is companionship, and I think having a cat is just very fun to watch their behaviors and try to see and feel what they are thinking. And the reason I even brought this up, this hot topic, is because I woke up this morning to plants all over my house that had been dug, and obviously there's one person I can point the finger at. It is my black cat Luna, who decided to go haywire last night. And we've been training so hard and doing, lemon spray and lemon juice around the plant so she doesn't get into them. Okay, so I'm like, I was kind of pissed at Luna. And then I walk outside where I've planted another plant right next to my door. And the neighbor's cat had gotten into that plant. Okay. And there was a cat poop right under where that plant had been dug up. And somehow some of that poop had gotten on my house. So on the way to teach yoga this morning, chaos in my house, chaos out of my house, all stemming from the cat.
Cats. I mean, that's a powerful review against cats. Now, I do have a more important question related to this question. How many animals can a girl have that you're interested in before you're like, this is a red flag? There are too many animals in this domicile.
This is a deep question.
I think anything more than 4, and I'm scratching my head.
Anything more than 1.
I agree.
No,
3
because if there are like okay, like I think a really good balance is a cat, a miniature turtle, a dog that kind of wrangles the whole crew together, and then you just like rescued a bird, right? You
Oh,
know,
no, 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 no. You
broken
did not just
wing.
say bird. You did not just allow a bird into this house.
Well, and Fletch, coming from the person who's both of your pets were strays that you found in the most obscure places, like part of having a successful relationship with a pet, and part of a girl, I would say, having a successful relationship with a pet is where they found them. And
Mm.
Fletch, finding your new pet under a bus is not maybe the most productive solution to the
But this
problem.
isn't about productivity.
Well,
Actually, this conversation will lean
Everything's
into
about productivity.
in what, 5th grade, my brother wrote a song lyric that said, "If everyone loves someone, then somewhere somebody says that someone's me." And if you're listening and you have 4 pets, Fletch may
Wait,
be that someone for you.
say that again. Say that all one more time.
If
Slow it down.
everyone loves someone, then somewhere someone thinks that someone's me.
Yeah. Okay.
That's pretty
My mom.
good, right? Like 5th grade, my like that, that's strong.
That
So
is
yeah,
good.
just it's encouraging for everyone out there. Like, some people want the 4 pets, and some people just say 0 pets would really be preference. But um, Fletch, I hope you find the bird, the turtle, the cat, and the dog.
With that, HD, you want to dive into the pool real quick, and then we'll jump back into the talk.
Permission to leap.
Great.
It's gonna be alright.
If you can give your community permission, especially with men, it can go a long way.
I feel it in my heart.
And only from that place of peace can a relationship truly be reconciled.
I saw the
The sun is shining bright.
But if I stop and create a little space, then there's that room for response. Then I can actually check in with myself.
Gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. Let it go, carry on. Let it go, carry on.
And we are back. It's not just 3 dudes today. We have 4 dudes with feelings. I'm here joined by my good buddies Fletch, McKenzie, and my new friend Joe. It's great to have you here, Joe. You want to introduce yourself?
Guys, I am delighted to be here. I think that I had mentioned it earlier. The idea that this podcast is called Dudes with Feelings, and I'm a dude that likes to feel, is very exciting. I feel right at home, and I just met you guys, a wee 3 minutes ago. So let's get into it. Let's talk feels.
So, Joe, let's begin this conversation with how we met and then where that conversation or where that meeting kind of evolved into and what sort of conversation was provoked.
Yeah, it was a lonely championship NFL Sunday, and our mutual friend Matthew invited us over for a Pizza Hut big dinner box and a few adult libations, and so I showed up and started to partake as relatively early as I could. Just because I love a couch, I love good classic American football, and then a very keel tempered, almost like aura of a man walked in, and his name was Fletcher Barnes. And he just kind of had this calming, uh, to not use the same word again, but calming aura to him that just kind of was very welcoming and comfortable. We got to talking about what we do. You told me that you're a documentary filmmaker. I was very impressed with hearing that you were kind of following your passion. I started to tell you about my passion for entrepreneurship and technology, and next thing you know, we started setting up coffee dates to just continue to talk about our passion for what we do and who we're becoming as people. And I think it's been a blossoming friendship ever since.
And I think it's so funny too that, that spurred and really provoked this friendship that I see evolving. And, next thing you know, we're uh we're at this Gasparilla party, and then it's just you and I doing the whole Gasparilla thing together. Which was pretty hilarious. But I do feel like those conversations we've had or is the reason I felt like I wanted to bring you on the pod, because I feel like there's a lot of insight you have onto your entrepreneurial journey. And I want to, explain in the best way you can what you're working on, the application that you're involved in, and really talk to Mackenzie and Henry about what twos really is.
And feel free to also add in what this Gasparilla Fest thing was, because I'm feeling a little left out over here. Like there was
I have no idea what
something
you're talking
happened.
about.
Yeah.
I don't know how much details Fletch wants to elaborate on, but let's just say it ended at a house with a dog of a girl, and it was a beautiful group of people, and just a lot of walking and a lot of good vibes.
I know less now than I did
Yeah,
before that.
did you remember the dog's name, Joe?
Oh God.
No,
No, I do not. I was not in the right mindset to use my system in that capacity.
Well, yeah, let's just keep pushing forward. I'll go ahead and take Fletch's question, because I'm excited to hear about twos and just what you're up to, Joe.
Yeah, guys. I mean, I'm so blessed to be here on a Thursday at 1:25 p.m. I think the best way to tell you about twos is just kind of to tell you my story, and it begins when I'd first graduated college. Um, so I have been diagnosed with ADHD for about 15 years now. So for about as long as I can remember, they got me in a psychologist's office, and they were like, "Yep, this kid can't pay attention to, anything." And so I took their diagnosis in stride, except for the fact that I was very obtuse to prescription medication. It made me super robotic. It made me like not feel myself. It made me feel different from the other kids. And so for the entirety of my like schooling, I would only take it when it was absolutely necessary. And so then I graduated, and there were never like those absolutely necessary periods in time anymore. There weren't exams, there weren't essays. It was just kind of like, what are you going to make of yourself as a human? And that was really hard for me. I just like didn't particularly know how to excel in my career. And so I called my dad and I said, "What do you recommend?" And he said, "You need to write things down." And I was so perplexed by his advice because, I was coming to him from a super vulnerable place and explaining like, it feels like my hair is on fire. Every day is like just moving 1,000 miles an hour, and I've got no idea what I'm doing. And he just very calmly said, "Just write things down." And he meant it literally in the nature of the fact that he said, "Go on Amazon, buy a notebook and a good pen, and just start to fill it out." And from that moment on, my life literally changed. Like, I filled out 5 notebooks in 6 months. I wrote down people's names. I wrote down stand-up jokes that I wanted to, potentially perform. I wrote down to-dos and ideas and just everything you could imagine. I just scribbled it on the pages. And then I met my co-founder, my now co-founder, Parker, who actually told me that he was working on an app for writing things down. And so that was like just this serendipitous moment that I like still can't even fully understand how it happened. But he explained to me that he was just trying to create a quick, easy, and organized place to write these random pieces of our lives down. And to me, our vision for Twos is to create digital paper. We want to give people the ability to just scribble down anything that's on their mind so that they can like ascertain this moment of peace, whether it be a to-do, a reminder, an event, a thought. And what's unique about Twos is that since we break up each piece of information into what we literally call a thing, it gives you the ability of moving things between days and lists. It gives you the ability of changing things into to-dos. it's the most flexible and fast way of just capturing your life. And we've been building for about 3 years now.
Hmm.
I know, Mackenzie, you're someone who is very like structured and organized. Um, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, I mean, right before coming on the pod, we had a meeting where Fletch HD and I are working on a program for kids who are just getting out of college and helping them find meaning and purpose. And we were talking about the significance of putting something down and seeing it in front of you, right? There's something about taking that third person perspective of a thought that completely changes the way you see that thought. And so I hear a lot of that in your story, which is, oh, I'm seeing my life for the first time in a third person perspective rather than having it all disorganized in a jarble in my head, or a, did I say jarble? In
Yeah, I
a
like that word.
I just made that word up, but perfect. We'll go with that. Um, Joe, my question is as someone who's a productivity nut like me and like is all about process and operations and structure, I've noticed that in productivity apps, the largest thing I struggle with is easy intake.
Mm,
How can I easily put things into a structure, right? Because I can open up any sort of notes app, like the notes on my phone, Notion, whatever, but I still have to dictate the whole intake funnel. So, talk to me about that. It sounds like what you guys special in is that intake of information.
absolutely. So we have built a system, a very simple system that is conducive of 3 parts: days, lists, and things. So every day you get a new list that really acts as your inbox. Because what's amazing about today is that it is one day for the rest of time that is exclusive to this moment, right? There will only ever be one February 15th, 2024 for the rest of our lives. And so all of these moments and all of these ideas that we have on today have that in common. So by being able to quickly capture any one of those things that you want to get off of your mind on your day, it serves as like a great temporary landing place for anything that you want to, kind of just quickly get off of your mind. It's why I'm very fond of twos on mobile, because, when you're on a walk or if you're getting a recommendation, I understand that there's a lot of amazing platforms for like when I have 3 screens out there and I like have time to like organize, a project schedule or something along those lines. We're much more focused on just those impulse moments. And so your day is the quickest and easiest place to write those things down. The reason that a day is so powerful is because of things. Now that I've written a thing down on my day, it could be bananas, it could be a quote, it could be a thought. I can move it to wherever I find it structured and organized later on. So, for example, HD, you were saying that like you guys, or I apologize, it was either McKenzie or HD. By the way, love that nickname, Henry. That's electric. Um, Richard Branson has a quote that I added to my favorite quotes list. No matter how big, small, simple, or complex an idea is, get it in writing. But don't just take your ideas and turn them into actionable and measurable goals. If you don't write your ideas down, they could leave your head before you even leave the room. So
Hmm.
there's something very powerful about being able to just capture these significant moments of our lives. And we pride ourselves on the system. Quick capture on your
Yeah.
day, organized in a list, and flexible because every piece of information is its own individual entity.
Hmm. I think I'm connecting a lot with so much of your story, Joe, and I may be your ideal client because I've spent the last 2 months going back through my iPhone notes for the past 5 years and trying to organize them. And it has taken me an absurd amount of time to sift through and figure out a good system. I have like a wisdom note and go each month, but then I just have no real ability to filter that into additional areas. And I'm fascinated to know because one of my favorite quotes when it comes to writing, and I know we talk about writing a lot, the three of us, is Matthew McConaughey talked about that in his book Green Lights. He talks about how I don't write. I don't. It's not that I'm writing to remember necessarily, but that I'm writing to allow myself to forget. And I thought that that was so powerful because I think it speaks to this idea of how writing creates more space in our mind, in our brain, as opposed to holding it all up there and feeling like I need to hold it. So I'm curious, and especially when if you think back to your experience with ADD and just the way that your mind works, what happens? What happens for you, and maybe more generally, what happens in our mind when we allow ourselves to get those thoughts out and to process through writing?
First, I have to comment on Greenlights. I've read it 3 times. It is my favorite book of all time. I actually, and if my mom sees this, this will be the first time that she's finding out about it. So, mom, close your eyes and ears. I actually got a tattoo when I was in Spain of a Matthew McConaughey quote, just keep living. So, my tattoo says, sigue viviendo, which is keep living in Spanish. Big Matthew McConaughey guy.
Nice.
And as far as your question, you were talking about just like the holistic benefits of writing things down. Did I get that right?
Yeah, maybe it's like the relationship between our mental health, our feelings, and writing. Like, how does that really play into this desire to live a mentally healthy life?
I'll tell another story for that. So I was in a very interesting relationship for about a year and a half with a girl that I was extremely fond of, but her the biggest complication that we had is that she struggled with communication. So like whenever there was a problem in our relationship or whenever there was something to talk about or uh, a big topic to be discussed, she would shut down. So she would refuse to like kind of have that conversation. And I would be obviously quite the opposite. I tend to think while I speak. So we kind of had that oil and water relationship around like a very important part, a cornerstone part of any relationship. And so what I would do is I would write things down. And literally it would take me from being in this place where I was so anxious and so frustrated and so like concerned to just being able to simply, and I kid you not, tap on my phone, talk about how I was feeling to twos because I knew that it just kind of had this structure that would be able to handle that information. And importantly, tomorrow when I open the app, I will not be refaced with those feelings. Like, has anyone ever had that when they write things down in Apple Notes and it's like super raw and emotional? And then like you're in a better headspace, you open it up again and you're like, whoa, like that's jarring.
Hmm.
I have for sure. I've been there. Definitely.
So for me, being able to write down these like disagreements or complications that we were having, and now let me give you even one better. Every time I think about, texting her and being like, "Hey, like I still love you." I see, and not actually. I see those things that I wrote down and it gives me clarity. It makes me go, "Oh, wow. I remember how hard this was in at periods." And it is quite literally like that ease of mind that I got from writing things down in the moment. And now I get in retrospect is unlike anything I've ever felt before in my life.
Mm. Yeah, it's amazing how our mind wants to kind of forget conveniently, especially when it comes to what I imagine you also felt in that relationship, which was a lot of good emotions, a lot of positive feelings of belonging and intimacy. And so those, without the tool or without the writing, it's easy to forget the negative, and we kind of want to romanticize the positive. That's a really interesting point.
Red flags behind rose-colored glasses just look like flags.
Well said. Well said.
Joe, I know something we started to talk about and something that I feel like we both just like really resonated with was the idea of creating separation with what you do and who you are. And I know anytime you're undergoing that entrepreneurial journey, there is this tend to just never stop working. right? And there's a 10 to the thing that you're working on because it's a byproduct of something that you care about and something that you want to see in the world, and something that probably has served you or is serving a problem that you care about. The you and the thing almost become one, and I think that can take a toll on mental health. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to find separation and maybe that journey in and of itself?
I mean, I think that you put it so perfectly, is that it is quite literally a journey, because I struggle with self-doubt a lot. Like, I have a tendency to be my own biggest critic, and I know that that's a cliche, but I feel it, really at my core. Um, and that becomes incredibly complicated when you're dealing with a very small team and big aspirations, and just feeling like if I'm not putting forth 100%, then we're not working as effectively as we can be. And that always feels like it's on me, but then it kind of causes me to be someone that I'm not. It causes me, like, for example, whenever somebody tries to talk to me about the, intangible or tangible benefits of waking up at 4 a.m. and going for a run and being on your desk by 7 and then working until, 8, 9 p.m., I've just never been that person, because like a full night's sleep to me is imperative to how I feel throughout the day. And I will say, like, obviously for those people, they have a ability to go to bed at like 9 or 10, but that's also not me. I love live sports. I love communicating with my friends. They're in the West Coast. So like there's a balance, exactly like you said, of like, and I've had to find that balance like literally as we've been building and still to this day, which essentially is, what are my core values and how can I marry that with my responsibility to be at the helm of this at all times. So yeah, just again, and I've found that through writing. I've written down like what my top 20 core values are, then I've narrowed it down to my top 10, then I've narrowed it down to my top 5, and I'm like, if everything else fails, if I can have these 5 things, then twos can come at the wayside of those 5 core values.
Mm.
Joe, would you just because I think it's often really helpful for people, because I think core values can kind of live in the clouds. We hear about it a lot. I don't know if you have them written down, but if you're willing to share them, I think it would be really really awesome to hear what those are for you.
I absolutely do. Give me just a second while I get them pulled up, which hopefully should take exactly that, just a second.
It's really a product test right here.
It is, as quickly as I can get them going on. Okay. So that's my template. Here is my list. So I just realized I went top 10, top 5, top 3.
Let's go.
So I'll go top 5 and top 3. In my top 5, I have adventure, friendships, fun, humor, and kindness. And then when I whittle those down, it comes to adventure, friendships, and kindness. Those to me are imperative. Adventure as it directly relates to travel and having new experiences. Friendships like meeting, a beautiful, beautiful Fletcher Barnes at an NFL Sunday and then kind of being like, let's see where the rest of this goes. And what was the last one? Kindness. I pride myself on being a genuinely kind person. One of my favorite things that I like to do selflessly, genuinely, is help people move. Whenever they need help moving, I'm always the first one that they can call, because I know what it feels like to have to, pivot a couch around a load wall or a load bearing wall. It's just such a stressful situation. And so I like to offer myself as an able bodied human in all of those situations. So, yeah.
And
Thank you for asking.
how do you market yourself as that? Uh, you know, gargantuan or elephant of a mover.
So I actually have created Joe's Moving Company. We can't promise you that it'll all get there in one piece, but we can promise it'll get there fast. So that's my tagline.
It'll get there in a kind way.
Joe, thanks for sharing those. And HD, I think that's really cool that you even, prompted him to share. And the fact that, Joe, I remember when we were talking and you were kind of showing me the landscape of twos, I brought up this idea of the application being something that reminds you with who you want to become, right? So you got to see like your personal mission statement, your values, especially if that is something that you are actively working on. And you were over on the couch, like shaking your head vigorously because I feel like you knew that you had your values written down. Um, so that's cool that you were able to pull them up right there.
And another thing that I haven't yet gotten a chance to talk about, but at its core, while Twos is a beautiful, beautiful place to write things down, we also have a very strong belief in exactly what you just said, which is remembering who you are, remembering what you need to do, remembering things about other people. And so one of my favorite features is our memories view. So if I were to capture my core values 1 year ago today, and I completely forget about that list, HD, I think that you're kind of, touching on this a little bit with trying to reorganize your Apple Notes. Because everything in Twos is time-based, regardless of whether or not you write it on your day, you have a little date and time stamp above everything that you write down in Twos. It then gives you the ability of revisiting that information on that same time interval. So 1 year ago, I wrote things down. 2 years ago, I wrote things down. 3 years ago, I wrote things down. And it just has this beautiful way of reminding us of some of our favorite memories and thoughts and quotes in a very basic and intuitive way. It's just a beautiful, beautiful way of like kind of seeing who you're becoming over time.
You can talk a little bit about the symbol and the icon and how, yes, it doesn't just represent the number, but more or less the ribbon tied upon, because I feel like that's another cool story that is embedded with the application and more so kind of the historical context of where we have come from as humans.
Y'all, this is starting to feel like an interview. Like I feel like I'm talking a lot, but yeah, I'll keep going. I mean, I love getting to talk to you guys, and I love getting to tell our story. So the original name or the original logo for Twos was exactly what you see here, except for sans the red ribbon. Fletch, I told you this story, and I actually have always been kind of embarrassed by it, but I think it's actually pretty pure. My co-founder had an inside joke with a former girlfriend of his where whenever something good in the world would happen completely randomly, they would throw up a peace sign and they would just go, Twos. This is before Twos. This is before anyone wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was completely random and there's no explanation for it. And so then Parker started to build V1 of Twos, and he was like, I want to give people those feelings. I want them to experience this like overcoming of peace and joy that like in the middle of a restaurant, we're just going to raise our peace signs up and just yell Twos. So he asked Elise if he could use that for the name of the product, and she said yes. So that is the reason that Twos is called Twos. But then beyond that, when we really decided that we wanted to be an app that helps people write, remember, and share things, we decided to put the string around the finger because back in the day, and you guys could probably ask your parents about this, people would tie strings around their finger to remember things. So quite literally, you would tie a red ribbon around your finger, and then every time you looked at the ribbon, it would jog your memory for the bananas that you need to pick up from the store or the thank you note that you need to send. Because, paper is obviously one thing, but a string on the finger goes with you wherever you're walking. And so that's what we're trying to build with twos. Just a constant reminder of what you need to remember.
Not on the toes, on the fingers.
I mean, hey, that would probably work too. Like you'd probably have to walk around barefoot a lot, but
So
it would
true.
work.
Joe, what I'm hearing is the whole intention of twos is to create clarity out of the chaos of your mind, right? And the fact that you were mentioning your values in this is really, really interesting, because I think a lot of that chaos comes from people pursuing very chaotic things like feelings and results as the answers to their life and the purpose of their life. For instance, it's like someone will say, well, I want to get rich. Well, that's a result of work that you've put in. Or for instance, people will say, I want to be happy. Well, happy is a fleeting emotion that goes away and comes in and just comes in and out of our lives within seconds. And so the fact that you're rooting that in your values, or the purpose of your life and the balance of your life in your values, talk to me a little bit about the benefits you've found with focusing on pursuing your values versus pursuing the results.
It is something that I cannot pretend like I have had for a long time. When I went to college, I knew that I wanted to be a part of the business school. Why did I know that? Because I knew that it would make my mom happy. I was like, no matter how much I enjoyed AP photography in high school, no matter how much I enjoyed theater and expressing myself, everybody was playing football in the fall, so I played football. Like there was no real self-discovery and willingness to be myself for 26 years of my life almost. And so when I graduated, I knew that I wanted to continue to, make my mom proud and impress my friends. So I vied for a position in private equity. Again, just result based. Like, what do I want? I want an office. I want to wear a suit. I want to be staring at Excel. And then I got there and I hated it. I mean, it killed me internally more than I can possibly explain. Every time I would show up at 9:10 versus 9, I would get this verbal lashing. Even if I stayed until 7 or 8 that night, they didn't let me really express myself. There was no training. There was no hand in hand community. It was terrible. And so funny enough, I actually was fired. And to this day, I still don't entirely know why, because I do think that I did a relatively good job for them. And I can't really particularly say what they were looking for and that I didn't offer. But I remember that being one of the biggest lows of my entire life, because I was just so in my own head about what that said about me as a person and what it said about my career. And again, when I was vying for these results that now I was being stripped of, it completely set me off balance. But what I found from that is that it gave me the opportunity of starting to explore my true values. I didn't think the day after that I wanted to start applying to more private equity jobs or that I wanted to stay in finance. It really gave me the opportunity of thinking what am I? Who am I? And being an entrepreneur has really been able to let me express that and explore that and be that. Yeah. And it's been truly the best 3 years of my life.
Yeah, and you're speaking to a truth I think a lot of people our age and younger are experiencing right now, which is they're realizing that in some ways our mind works against us. Our mind is working to survive and not to thrive. And that survival comes in that short-term pleasure of trying to get to those results, right? Of just I've accomplished the things that other people validate me in. And it keeps your mind in that pace of I'm going to I'm the most important thing to you. I'm the most important element of your identity. Um, but what you're realizing in that, from what I'm hearing, is that your values actually put the values on your life in a weird way. It's not, or the value of your life. So your values are putting the value on your life.
No, I
It's
mean,
not your mind or anything like that. It's strictly your values are the things that create meaning, right?
100%. I think that it's so easy, and I think that there is a trend that is like kind of changing the norm all of a sudden, and I think that you guys are a phenomenal example of that. Just simply doing this podcast is like something that like is more than likely a part of one of your core values. You know, like it's not like this is a get rich quick scheme or like a a way to you know it's nothing more than something that you guys genuinely enjoy doing, and something I want like a lot of people to do a little bit of an inventory on is like, what are you striving for, and who or what do you expect the outcome from getting that result to be? You know, the raise at work lets you buy a slightly better car or a slightly better apartment. The girlfriend that drives you absolutely insane gets you more likes on your Instagram. Like there's so many things out there that we believe are important to us, but then when we get them, it's completely like vapid, and it's just like this cycle. It's this hamster wheel of, more, more, more. And I think that when you have the opportunity of focusing more on your values and like what you genuinely enjoy doing as a human, like waking up with a smile on your face, you just tend to live like a much
Mm.
more pure life.
Yeah. I'm curious to go back, if you will, Joe, like that. So I think what you just said is so true, and it sounds like there was a moment where you realized that, where you got fired from your job and you hit this really low point. Something that concerns me is that I perceive you, just in the short period of time I've been talking to you in the last 45 minutes, as someone who is a happy person. Like you seem happy where you are right now. But what I also know is that men have become masters of disguise. That you might have appeared just as happy at that point in your life, when the truth was internally you were absolutely in a spiral. And so I would love to just hear what that period was for you. Just knowing that a lot of men are there and are still having to project or put on a face. How did you navigate that? Who did you turn to, and how did you ultimately start to come out of that place?
I feel extremely lucky to be a perennially optimistic guy.
Mhm.
And something I've always said, and especially as it relates to my ADHD, is that I can't turn me off. And so while a lot of other people kind of have this ability to like truly like malleate themselves into someone that they're not for the sake of society, is something that I was never particularly able to do. And so I think that's ultimately why I got fired, is because I showed up and I did the job, but I was still me. I got a fish for my office, and I, hung up the boss's daughter's drawing of me. And I would always go into our CFO's office asking for like more learning opportunities. And I was me, right? But the thing is, NHD, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. Even now, like Master of Disguise, for the past 2 days when I was going through this like low point of sickness, I was like more depressed than I've ever been. I
Mm.
was unfocused. I was frustrated. I was, feeling very sensitive. And so I think it's like a very tough balance. Like,
Mm.
I don't think that you can ever truly live in like rainbows and sunshine forever. But what you can do is identify who you are and just try to be true to that. Like friendship, kindness, and adventure. I will always choose to go to Gasparilla Music Festival on the, drop of a dime because that's an adventure to me. I will always take a random flight to Puerto Rico when my buddies are like, "Hey, we're going." And the thing that I've actually been most on as of recent is an avoidance of guilt. Guilt is something that we put on ourselves because we feel like we're doing wrong. But what I've come to realize is that when you and actually Fletch taught me this, when you give yourself a degree of allowance and permission to be who you are and to explore what you want to explore and feel what you want to feel, you tend to feel a lot more happy just on a day-to-day basis.
I think you taught yourself that, Joe. I think I just gave you permission to teach yourself.
So Joe, why do people hold on to their story?
I think it's because they're afraid of what society will think of them. I think that they're afraid of like who they've stood up themselves to be, and like comfortability. If the classic anecdote, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you have a roof over your head and hot meals and like relationships that you're relatively happy with, then that's all great. And I can't discount it either. There certainly is a lot of risk and difficulty in doing, what all of us do, which is like kind of following our dreams and striving for passion. But I can see the other side of the coin too, where comfortability is very addictive. I think it's why salaries come every 2 weeks, because it's just like a little hit. It's like, just give me a little bit of something to make me feel good. And it's addictive.
I feel like so many times too, we have that resistance when you want to, jump outside of that discomfort and put yourself in those situations where you're not reinforcing who you were. And I feel like so much of what you've shared thus far has been aspects of your journey that have been uncomfortable. Like I want to take a second here and just commend your ability to formulate language around where you were and how far you've come. I think it's really easy as a human just to fall into the hamster wheel directly out of college and then not get off of it until maybe halfway through your life. And then you start asking questions. Um, so I think the fact that, and McKenzie has taught me this, and Henry, both of them have provided me with so much learning, is start by asking the questions, right? And sometimes we don't even give ourselves that space and grace to even start asking questions that actually matter, because I think from those questions, honest questions, you can start to illuminate different areas of your life that you feel like are important to you and um, where you want to go.
And Fletch, I know that you not only know this, but you practice this and you teach this. But slowing down is so powerful. We live in a world of just chaos and constant and stimulation and go, go, go. It's who we are as people, it's who we are as Americans. But something as simple as just giving yourself a little bit of time. HD, when you started the podcast with that breath, man, I've never felt like more prepared to just be than after that. And it's a 30-second breath, but it's like if you don't actively think about it, if you don't actively give yourself time to do it, and you don't have to, rip off the band-aid by going for a 10-minute meditation session every day. You just got to give yourself time to be alone. And I think that that's when those questions start to, come up.
Yeah, and Fletch, to your point too about getting curious and asking the question, I think it's important that you ask the quality question, not the rhetorical question, right? The rhetorical question is, why does this always happen to me? Or why am I always doing this, right? You know the answer. It's because you're choosing that every single time. You're electing to constantly validate that narrative you've been selling yourself. And so asking the quality question, I like to say, rather than ask why, ask what. What about this anger is causing me to run to it? What about this situation is allowing me to choose this emotion, right? Getting more quality questions internally when we do pause and take that breath is the key to actually unlocking the joy and breakthrough that comes with being curious.
And McKenzie, with that quality question, what happens? You're talking about breakthrough, but what I guess can happen that might lead us into, staying in stagnation? Like, can you kind of make this a little bit more practical? Like, what would a quality question look like?
Well, to answer the first part, I mean, what you get out of it is curiosity, not spiraling, right? So any way you can disrupt that spiraling pattern. The problem with some of the patterns we have is they've been calcified. We've been believing this story ever since we decided that this is our story, which happened from a super young age, right? So we've calcified this story. Getting curious with it and questioning it is the best way to break it and the best way to start poking holes in it. Because again, if your mind is only focusing on survival, you've got to almost work against your mind and challenge your mind and get into the discomfort of what the unknown is, right? And where I see that a lot, Fletch, is, and maybe to answer the second part of your question is, we talked about this earlier today. People will go to, well, I've tried everything and it doesn't work, right? They create a massive overgeneralization of what they've tried. Okay, put everything you've tried on paper now, right? Open up your Twos app and start listing all of the things you've tried. And I think what you'll discover is you've hardly tried anything. You're just telling yourself you've tried everything. Because by saying you've tried everything, your mind is saying, this story is true. So hopefully that answers your question, Fletch.
Tony Robbins had a really good quote recently that I related with a lot, is that if you don't know what you want, write down all of what you don't want, and typically what you want is the opposite of that. And I think that that's like a very powerful way of like setting the foundation.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for Tony.
I'm a big Tony guy. I went to one of his. I
No way.
walked on coals, baby. I was there.
Nice.
Let's go.
And Fletch, I've
Nice.
been thinking about it. I went to the Y right before this, and I did my sauna and then cold shower immediately after.
Yes.
And I keep thinking to myself, this will not be anything similar to a sauna and cold plunge. And I'm like already trying to mentally prepare myself.
Beautiful.
Like,
I'm bringing you. You're coming.
I need it. I want it.
Yeah, I've been trying to get McKenzie and Henry. I've been talking to them about it, and I know that one day they will be here, and we will all go and sauna plunge together.
Are you guys Tampa based, HD and McKenzie?
No, so I live in part time. No, I live in Charlotte, and Mackenzie's out in Colorado.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Yeah.
So all split up right now.
Very cool.
But I'm taking.
Well,
a
yeah,
walk.
no, I mean, I think that, the grass is always greener in a lot of different ways, but I'm very, very happy with Tampa. And the reason I bring it up in particular is because I had the blessing of being able to join Fletch in one of his yin classes on Sunday morning. And that's what I was talking about with the slow down. Like, I mean, it was powerful, man. I sat in my car for like 20 minutes after, just kind
Wow.
of breathing. And it was the most like comfortable moment of my life.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, there's something about when we do from a place of being, as opposed to trying to find our being from the doing. It's just a different rhythm,
That I'm gonna write that down. That's a favorite quote right there.
Good.
About the Twos.
Yeah, so there's a lot I'm taking from this convo, but Tony Robbins plus twos equals breakthrough is definitely one algorithm that I'm throwing in.
Yeah,
we're all Joe, we're a big fan of creating equations when it
Uh-huh.
comes to things like
Simple math.
love and emotions. Yeah,
Yeah,
simple
no,
math.
no complex fractions here. But
Except
And
when
if
you
you
throw in the variables of animals.
that's
And if you square root the hope factor and then you
Mhm.
put that over, I
Mm.
like simple equations as well.
Divide it with desperation and see what comes out. Yeah.
Uh,
That's funny.
dude, well,
That's
thanks so
really
much for
funny.
joining, Joe. It's been awesome just getting to chat with you a bit.
No, dudes, this has been the most fun that I've had all week. I really, really enjoyed it. And you guys obviously are wonderful liaisons to kind of carry this narrative forward. I know, obviously, like I said, I can only really comment particularly on the theme, the dudes with feelings theme. And I think that's such a powerful thing to stand on right now. And I think that as a trend, I think men have an opportunity to become more in touch with these kinds of conversations. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing you guys carry it on because I think it's amazing, truly amazing.
Yeah, we're all born with the same emotions. It's just how are we raised in them? Joe, before we go, how would someone get twos?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to visit writethingsdown.com. It's just the most memorable, writethingsdown.com, or search twos on the App Store or Google Play Store. The beautiful thing about it is that we're very unintrusive. No ads, you own your data, free to use, always will be. We have a firm belief in setting the foundation for what we believe to be a well-run company before concerning ourselves with any of the intangibles or the tangibles, I guess. Um, but yeah, so writethingsdown.com. You can also follow us on social media at 2zap. But I'm just really the most important thing that I would love to kind of close us out with is exactly the same advice that my dad gave me. Whether it be twos, a notebook, Apple Notes, Google Docs, whatever it may be, if you're seeking out peace of mind and clarity around who you are and what you want to become, just write things down. Just wherever you do it, get into a habit of it, write one or two things down every day, and you'll notice how it can immediately impact your life and make you feel a lot more in control of your own destiny. So,
Oh, that's a simple equation I can get behind.
Thanks so much, Joe. I appreciate you, brother.
thank
And
you guys. It's been amazing.
yeah, thanks, man.
Hey guys, thanks for getting to the end with us. We really appreciate y'all being here. Make sure wherever you're listening to this to go rate it and share it with a friend. It really helps get the word out there about this podcast. And there's one more thing that I really want to share with you guys. Beyond the Beat, which is a film we've been working on for the last several years, is officially live on Amazon. This is a big deal for us, and we really would love to hear what you guys think about it. So go and watch Beyond the Beat. It's this story about these three amazing friends who started a creative arts festival in the wake of a 2-decade civil war in northern Uganda. The film explores the potential and the power of art and creativity to inspire communities and really to bring healing in our lives and in communities all around the world. We think there's a ton of value in it, and we had a blast making it. So please go check it out and let us know what you think, and we'll see you next week. Peace, y'all.